All right, YouTube, this Detroit's HPTV coming to you with another video out of Detroit. We got to talk about the latest turn of events. Now, I did a video earlier this week on Barack Obama and how the Democratic Party were turning on Obama and kind of throwing Obama under the bus. It was even people who got in my comments, I guess they liberal, and they felt like, oh, well, I haven't turned on Obama. Now, let me start here on this pretext here. Everybody was watching Epstein, the Epstein list. Everything was about the Epstein list. And everything was about Pam Bondi. And I thought, because we do critical thinking over here, they've had the Epstein list all through the Biden administration. Epstein been going a while. So if the Biden officials had the Epstein list in their possession and under their control, if it incriminated Donald Trump, they definitely would have used it. So that stood out to me. One thing, they threw everything but the kitchen sink at Donald Trump. If they could have tied into some type of nefariousness with Epstein, they would have definitely used it. We'd have got the Epstein list. So they asked Donald Trump, would he release the Kennedy files, which we all know that's old news ever since the Magruder tapes. Then they said Martin Luther King. We all knew that they been had those files and wasn't going to be nothing new there. Then they was asking about the Epstein list. And Donald Trump was kind of nonchalant about, oh yeah, I'll release that if it's going to help or whatever. And then Pam Bondi was coming out saying, oh, I got the Epstein list and we got the tapes and we got the flight logs and all of that. And then all of a sudden they said there is no Epstein list. And the people went mad. Even MAGA people turned. MAGA people turned on Donald Trump. And I started thinking, I started paying attention and doing a deep dive into the history of the beef between the Clintons, Obama, Brennan, Comey, and Donald Trump. Now, we all know Donald Trump got a memory like an elephant. He don't let his enemies get away. And if he could get them with the Epstein files, we would have seen them. Now, we're doing critical thinking. Why did they make such a big thing about the Epstein list and Pam Bondi only for it to be a distraction? Everybody is worried about the Epstein list, but that wasn't even what was going on. Breaking news from yesterday. Do you know there was one person missing in all this fray? Tulsi Gabbard, the head of national security. Tulsi Gabbard was quiet, and she's the head of national security, and she wasn't saying anything. What was she doing? Where has the Clintons been? The Clintons have been awfully quiet. Even Obama hasn't been saying or attacking Trump. But everybody on the mainstream legacy media was on this Epstein list. But the main players were silent. They said nothing about the Epstein list. And you know why? Because they knew the Epstein list was nothing. They knew that Epstein, as nefarious as he was, he didn't write down his own crimes and save them. You know, he's not a gangster rapper that goes out and shoots somebody, then makes a song about it. Most criminals never incriminate themselves in writing. They might incriminate everybody else, but they're going to protect themselves. I'm saying all this to say, what was really going on, people? Were they investigating Epstein list, really? Or was it about draining the swamp? Guess what we forgot about? while we were watching Epstein list. Russia, Russia, Russia. That's right. Russia, Russia, Russia. So my title to this video is not clickbait. If you thought it was clickbait, I'm going to show you that it's real news. I had a guy get in my comments and said that because I was dealing with this topic, it was fake news. I don't do fake news. I do real news. And political science is my major. And I'm going to show you why Trump was so nonchalant when he said, why everybody talking about the Epstein list? That was a decoy. That was a red herring. What he really was working on and national security is working on, treason. Treason. Traitors. And I know that's a heavy term, treason and traitors. But who really had collusion with Russia? Who really had collusion with Ukraine? Who really was using the taxpayer money to fund a globalist agenda and get rich? It was the usual suspects. It was Donald Trump's real enemies. And I'm about to show you what they were really working on. What's really finna go down. And y'all been talking about y'all wanted to see arrest. I guarantee you, y'all finna see some arrest. And y'all not gonna like it. So without further ado, let's get into this clip. This for fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act for education and commentary. Oh, and I got one public service announcement. I will be on Roland's Review this evening for my regular subscribers that also go over to Roland's Review. We're going to have a panel tonight, and I'll be on there, and we're going to go in on a lot of these topics. But right now, let me show you what Donald Trump was really working on. Check this out.
Trump signed an executive order announcing that the federal government would, quote, take appropriate action to correct past misconduct related to the weaponization of law enforcement and the weaponization of our intel community. No person alive today knows what it's like to have the full force of the federal government turned against you better than Donald Trump. Well, he does not want any other Americans to have to go through what he went through because President Trump, frankly, has been bent to hell and back. And it all started at the beginning of his first term with the totally phony Russia hoax. We spent 3 years unpeeling every layer of that onion on this program with John Solomon and Greg Jarrett and Sarah Carter and others. Today, we're learning another shocking detail about the early days of that sham investigation. We have a newly declassified report prepared for President Barack Obama back in December of 2016.
Now, I'm only going to interject here. Y'all been wanting to be upset because they didn't declassify Epstein's list. Epstein's list was a smokescreen. Look what they just declassified. Pay attention.
Right after Donald Trump won, specifically stating, quote, Russian criminal activity failed to reach the scale and sophistication necessary to change election outcomes. And they were talking about one place in Chicago. Now, the deep state did not like the assessment. That was put together by career people, rank and file people. But when the politicized people around Obama got it, guess what? It changed. They never let Obama see it. Then when he asked them to prove that Russia meddled in the election, they just simply complied and they turned it on its head. And frankly, in many ways, you can say they polluted what was real intelligence and they turned it into poison. And they did it to destroy one man. Is it any wonder that there are now reportedly criminal investigations, this conspiracy investigation by Kash Patel underway, and it specifically names Comey and Brennan. All right, here to give us all the details and bring us up to speed with reaction to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. She declassified this report yesterday, has many more details. You know, I have this creation of the Russia hoax that you put out.
Now, I'm going to say something. Because I know y'all following what he's saying. Y'all been waiting on Pam Bondi to declassify something when Pam Bondi is not the head of national intelligence. So we've been worrying, and Trump has been even defending Pam Bondi. And to Pam Bondi, she's been taking it on the chin because they already knew what Tulsi Gabbard was working on. And now this is what's declassified.
On X that you posted on X, and I'll put it up as you're speaking here. What is amazing to me as I've gone through this cache of documents you've released is they concluded just the opposite. They concluded there was no problem. And then all of it, that was the rank and file. These were career people in the intel community. They gave honest assessments. Then all of a sudden it ends up in the hands of the leadership, the deep state as we call them. And what happened to it? Can you explain what the process and what these documents reveal?
I emphasize again, it is free to join my community. The stocks I share are also free. The techniques and strategies I teach are...
Yeah, thank you so much, Sean. This is such an important issue, and I just want to start by saying that this is an issue that is important to every single one of us as Americans. This is not a partisan issue. It has to do with the integrity and the strength of our democratic republic. And it lays out this over 100 documents that you're referencing that I released, declassified and released, spells out in great detail exactly what happens when you have some of the most powerful people in our country directly leading at the helm, President Obama and his senior-most national security cabinet, James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, and Susan Rice and others, essentially making a very intentional decision to create this manufactured, politicized piece of intelligence with the objective of subverting the will of the American people who in November of 2016 delivered a historic victory to President Trump, defeating Hillary Clinton. And President Obama and his team, their goal was to essentially not accept the decision of the American people and to use this manufactured, politicized intelligence as a means to enact what would become essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. You have gone into great detail over these years of what the effects of this document and this decision have resulted in. Obviously, a years-long Mueller investigation that cost taxpayers almost $40 million, 2 congressional impeachments, endless smears and attacks against not only President Trump, but his family. He had senior members of his team who were investigated, some arrested and jailed. We had heightened and increased tensions between the United States and Russia. The list goes on and on about the consequences of President Obama and his senior cabinet members politicizing intelligence once again, and I say these words very clearly, to enact what was essentially a years-long coup, subverting the will of the American people in that election in November. Now, you referenced this President's Daily Brief document that was drafted for President Obama in early December that reaffirmed what the intelligence community professionals, as you say, had been assessing for the previous 6 months leading up to the election, which was that Russia neither had the intent nor capability to essentially hack the outcome of the U.S. election. As you said, President Obama's political appointees pulled that document before it could be published, and it has not been published until we released it today. And the very next day after they pulled that document, President Obama called a National Security Council cabinet meeting to discuss how Russia interfered with the election. Again, this is the first
This
week
is
of December.
9th,
President
right?
Trump had already won. Correct.
This is the December 9th meeting.
That's exactly right. The December 9th meeting, we declassified and released what they call the summary of conclusions from that meeting. Then DNI James Clapper took the lead on what President Obama wanted done, and which was essentially create a document that tells us not if, but how Russia interfered with the election. President Obama delivered the conclusion that he wanted the intelligence community to reach, and directed them to find and essentially create and manufacture the intelligence to support the conclusion that President Obama wanted to deliver to the American people. Once that document was drafted, the deep state kicked into gear and did what they usually do. They started leaking this classified information out to their friends at the Washington Post and others who are working hand in glove with the deep state to lay the groundwork for the assessment that they eventually released that served as the basis once again for this years-long coup with the goal of trying to subvert the American people's will and usurp President Trump from being able to deliver on the mandate that the American people gave to him when they chose to elect him as president of the United States.
So you had career intel people that came to a conclusion that, in fact, Russia did not interfere, that it had no impact, and they didn't like the assessment, and they have this meeting with President Obama at the time, and they make the decision, a very conscious decision, to pervert real intelligence, turn it into phony intelligence, but also simultaneously something else was happening. And James Comey, for example, was warned about the Russian disinformation dossier that was paid for by Hillary Clinton. He was warned not to trust it, but it became the bulk of information for not one but four separate FISA warrants, ruined Carter Page's life, but also backdoored an ability for them to spy on President Trump, candidate Trump, and transition team Trump. Nobody was ever held accountable for that either. Now, to me, it sounds like you have appointed powerful bureaucrats that just flat out created a narrative that was false to undermine a duly elected president. Now, if that's not a grand conspiracy, I don't know what would be. Do you see crimes here?
I do, Sean, and I'm referring all of these documents that we have found and uncovered, referring them to the Department of Justice for further investigation, accountability, and action, not just investigation, but action. Accountability has to take place. The American people's ability to have faith and trust in the integrity of our democratic republic is literally what's at stake, and therefore the future of our ability to exist as the country that we know it. This accountability is critical to make sure that this never happens again. Exposing the truth and naming those who are responsible should drive that accountability that has to take place. I just want to mention quickly, Sean, you mentioned the Steele dossier. That plays a critical role in these documents that we released, specifically because James Clapper, James Comey, John Brennan, they all knew that the Steele dossier was discredited at this point. It's not something any intelligence professional looked to as something that could be referenced or should be referenced in any intelligence assessment whatsoever. I know that there were professionals who were told include the Steele dossier in this January Obama-directed manufactured piece of intelligence, and they protested to people like John Brennan and James Clapper. They were shocked that it would even be considered. The Steele dossier was used in this manufactured assessment that President Obama directed be created, along with many other pieces of intelligence that the intelligence community itself, for months leading up to the election, said this is not credible and should not be used at all.
We've got to get to the bottom of this. I hope there are criminal referrals at the end of this. This investigation has got to be thorough, and I have every belief that this is a big release today. Declassifying this is a big deal. I spent 3 years on this program unpeeling every layer of the onion, and the media just were used as propagandists, pushing a false conspiracy theory for 3 years, and it did great damage to the country. Tulsi, great work. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to...
Checkmate. Yeah, checkmate. These documents have been declassified. They're saying that now that the head of National Intelligence and Security is referring these documents over to the Department of Justice for investigation and bringing people to justice. That's the natural progression of, how can I say, they're crossing the T's and dotting the I's. It's going to follow the perfect procedural process with evidence that will end in arrest. While y'all was worried about Epstein, which was a distraction, they were tightening the noose on Obama and the deep state. Y'all may not like Trump, but that man be doing what he say he gonna do. When he told you he was gonna drain the swamp and go after the deep state and get crooked Hillary and the rest, he put people in play that could do it and would do it. And then he gave you a distraction only to drop the bomb Friday. He's playing chess, not checkers. And Obama was used and will be sacrificed. That's why his name is all over it. Think about what was said. If you got to play this video back, play the video back. What they got on them. Manufactured evidence that cost the taxpayer millions of dollars in false impeachments, undermining an election with a Russian hoax. After they had already been informed that Russia didn't even have the capabilities of rigging an American election. And Obama signed off on that. Y'all wanted to see arrest, y'all about to see him. This is, something didn't sit right with me with the Epstein list and how they was even responded. And then at the last minute, when Trump was being dismissive, like, why y'all still talking about that? Then when he came out and he told the MAGA people that was doubting him, I don't even need your support no more. I knew he had an ace in his hand. He had a hold card. And now you see it. What do you think about that? Treason. With all this other stuff going on in this country, they finna get the left with treason. So you leftists and you loyal Democrat plantation people, do y'all want to become enemies of the state? Ask yourself. Ask yourself, which side of history will you be on? Well, that's all I got for you today. This is Detroit's HPTV. Come to you out of Detroit. As always, like and share the video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. To my subscribers, I will be on Rollins Review this evening. As always, salute to all patriots. Keep y'all head on the swivel. Peace.